Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Happy Monday, Dr. Paul. How are you?
New week,
Yeah.
new news.
Yeah.
Or same old news.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a war we can talk about. I can
certainly
imagine there's a excessive spending binge going on in Washington.
Yeah.
We could talk about that, but everybody knows about it, but nobody wants to hear about it.
Yeah.
What are they going to do about it? You mean cut back? No, we need, these wars make us strong, and it's good for the economy, and all that military stuff is the road to peace. Well, we'll see about all that, but today we want to start off by talking about the release of U.S. intelligence, and that was supposed to reveal the plans for Israel in preparation to strike Iran, which is significant because even though this was printed by our friends, it's not Israel preparation, and I'm sure they know that. It's U.S. preparations with Israel to do it, because Israel's not going to do that without us being there and being involved. And so the big question was, why did they? For me, it was, why did they release this? What's the gimmick? What's the goal of doing this? What do they want to happen? Or was it somebody in a very, very important place wanting and having a strategy of their own and say, hey, maybe if we wake some people up, maybe we can prevent the war from expanding at this moment. And I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's what something we should think about and what's going on, because in many ways there are no secrets. And some of this information was meant to be spread around our allies. We're allowed to know what we're going to do, and so there was a lot of people really much aware of it. And just general common sense tells us that I would expect them to do that, on the response. And I don't think they do it out of reason, but they do it when they have an excuse.
Yeah.
They wanted to do it all along, but when the excuse is there and they can defend it in public, that is, stirring up trouble with Iran and putting them out of commission. There are those on our side and Israel's side that are very anxious to do exactly that.
The NSA has been referred to as a wilderness of mirrors, and that could be said about the entire, practice of intelligence. It's all about deception, manipulation.
Right.
That's what it's all about. So, actually put this first one up. This is Connor Freeman over at antiwar.com. Wrote about this over the weekend. Leaked U.S. intelligence documents outline Israeli preparations to strike Iran. So when I see this, I think about a few things. First of all, what exactly was leaked? And it was two documents. We'll talk about those in a second. What is the significance of those documents leaked? And where was it leaked from? And why was it leaked? Those are all big questions that we absolutely do not have the answer. Even experts that I know, friends that have looked through it, don't have the answers. But nevertheless, what we do know is that an obscure Telegram channel called the Middle East Spectator over the weekend, I think it was on Saturday, put out these two documents. Now to go to the next one, Dave DeCamp at Anti-War, he retweeted the documents. And this is from the Anti-War article. The documents, including a visual intelligence report from the Pentagon's National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, details ongoing activities being carried out in anticipation of the attack in Iran at Israeli Air Force bases. Dave DeCamp says, here are the docs. Looks like just U.S. observations while spying on Israeli drills. Biggest thing, I think, is the acknowledgement of Israel having nuclear weapons. Now, that is important, but it doesn't really answer some of the deeper questions. Who leaked it and why? Is it authentic? What is its purpose?
The nuclear weapon things is interesting, as if, it's been secret, a lot of people don't realize it, but, they have nuclear weapons. I remember many years ago, I was maybe for the early presidential races or something like that, I blurted out something that I did not have the proof in front of me, that Israel has over 100 nukes or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember our friend Lou Rockwell come on up to me after me said, "Don't you know that was top secret stuff?" He sort of laughed at the whole thing. So yes, I think most people know about it, but a lot of people forget about it, or they don't want to believe it, or they think it's strategically the most important thing in the world to have Israel able to use that as a weapon.
Yeah, yeah. So I went to our friend Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson was a career CIA analyst. He's spoken at, I think, a couple of our conferences, and is always very astute, and he knows a heck of a lot more than I do about how spy stuff works. And he actually took a little more interest. Most people I listened to about it, I listened to Alex Christoforo over the weekend, and he didn't think there was that much to it in terms of substance. It wasn't like, aha, this is what they have and this is what they're going to do. And that's generally the case. But again, there are so many other questions. If you go to the next one, this is from Sonar 21, which is Larry's website. I encourage people to listen in on Larry's stuff. Go to the next one, actually. So this is what Larry came up with. The following two documents popped up on the internet last night. One source on Telegram, the Middle East Spectator, claimed that, quote, an informed source within the U.S. intelligence community gave it to the Middle East Spectator, these classified documents. Larry goes on to say, I don't know if they're masterful forgeries created by AI or if the two are genuine. They look authentic, but I do not have the date, time, group configuration that I would expect to see. I'm sure the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians are asking the same questions. I assume that Russia and China can independently verify the authenticity of these documents by examining their own intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance data for the dates referenced in the reports to see if they can confirm the alleged activity. So that is that's his initial take on it.
You know, it's very important, and it's good if this is new information that people can react to it and maybe pull in their hawkishness and maybe rethink things. But, you know, in a way, it probably is not going to change anything. To really change something, you're going to have to change the attitude about leaders in the two countries or three countries or four countries, because we're involved in that. And right now, there's evidence that we're not going to, quiet things down with Iran. So that to me is what ultimately will have to be the test. And so I think the conflict is not going to be tremendously aggravated. Yeah. It's already aggravated enough, and it might be somebody that has a motive, and maybe it is just maybe make people stop and think about it before they do it, and that's maybe the reason they mentioned the nukes, because you watch out. You might be dealing with it. And I think a lot of people are aware of this. And, the one thing that I mentioned to you, that when this came out, I like to see what the markets are doing. Yeah. What's the oil market doing, and what's the gold market doing, and the stock market doing? Well, stocks are in such a horrendous bubble that it seems like for a while nothing is going to stop that. But and gold has every reason in the world to go up. But this week, gold did, this past week or two, are sort of responding in a way that this whole thing, dealing with Iran and Lebanon, serious stuff, and that it may well lead to big problems. Of course, we do believe that's going to happen. How it'll evolve and what will come of it, but common sense breaking out and having a peace conference next month, and all of a sudden peace breaks out. Not going to happen.
Yeah. One of the intriguing things about this is the fact that we know this. We have a two-tiered system, On the one hand, we have the ideologues, and they're the ones that tend to be political appointees. They tend to be neocons. They tend to be very gung-ho about war. But you also have this other tier, and there are people we've talked about fairly often. There are honest analysts within the Pentagon. There are honest people within the State Department and other parts of even the intelligence community who understand the implications a lot broader than people who've come in to enact their ideological bent, And so I think obviously Blinken is not a diplomat. I mean, he came up under Hillary Clinton. Hillary was a master at weaponizing the State Department. She turned it away from diplomacy, made it the opposite of diplomacy. So you have Blinken, who's an ideologue, and the people in the Biden administration are ideologues. You may well have someone within the community who understands the real world implications of us getting involved in a war with Iran, with our 40,000 troops vulnerable in the region and beyond, and may have leaked this in a way to try to blunt what he or she saw coming down the pipe. We don't know, but it's an intriguing possibility.
It is, and they're going to be talking about that a lot, but who knows what's going to happen in the next 24 hours or so, because things can change so rapidly, and accidents happen, things happen, and there's false flags, and there are misjudgments, and then there's also some people behind the scenes that, well, this looks like our opportunity. We're going to settle this for once and for all, and we have to wipe ABC countries off the map, and this is our opportunity to do it. So there are some people there with some very, very vicious plans, and it usually doesn't start with how do we bring peace to the world. That's secondary for some of these people. If it's a strict analysis of the pros and cons of what the policies are doing, that's one thing. But there are some, and we have them in our country too, and our hawks. They have one goal. They're not looking for balance and say on the one hand this and this, and maybe we can do this, and maybe we can delay this war. But this is yet to be seen. But I think there's a lot of people right now are considering the world to be less safe than it was a year ago.
That's for sure. Well, I want to just go quickly through a couple of Larry's ideas before we move on to our second one, because I think people looking at this wondering how should we think about these things. Now go to the next one. So he rules everything out like we talked about, and now it says now we enter the Hall of Mirrors, and this is another interesting possibility. Are these reports part of an elaborate psychological operation intended to lull Iran into a sense of complacency, or are these reports accurate and the leak is intended to provide proof to Iran, Russia, and China that Israel is struggling to get its act together? If these two documents are legit, Larry Johnson writes, then they provide Iran and Russia with valuable intel that could be used to blunt, if not defeat, the Israeli attack. Very interesting. And he wonders, is this the act of a whistleblower deciding to act on his or her own initiative to try to derail an Israeli attack? I don't know, Johnson says, but I do know what I would do to verify. And then he goes on to quote Stephen Bryan, who wrote in the Asia Times that if you go to the next one, it's extraordinarily valuable material that Iran can and likely will use to prepare its defenses. Whoever leaked it to Iran was warning that an Israeli strike was imminent. It also told the Iranians the types of weapons that would be used and the probable targets, the latter being mainly Iranian air defenses and long-range radars. Go to the next one. I won't read all of this, what Stephen Bryan said. You can look it up in Asia Times. But Larry Johnson did have a very interesting concluding statement on this, Dr. Paul. He said, whoever leaked these documents clearly had at least one objective in mind: stopping Israel's preparation for an attack on Iran. Who done it? I don't know. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's good to have people looking at this with the experience that he has.
It's good to have friends like that who we can count on.
He's on our side.
Yeah, we can count on. So,
okay.
Well, anyway, let's move on to the next one, and it's a related topic, and it has to do with war fatigue. And this is the Cradle. They focused on the Middle East. It's a publication online. If you go to that next clip, interesting story that came out this morning, I think it is. Everyone, this is a quote, everyone not dead or injured is mentally damaged, end quote. Israeli army hit by silent crisis. And the subtitle is, a growing number of Israeli soldiers are quietly refusing orders to return to Gaza. What do you make of this, Dr. Paul?
Well, I would think the first thing I think of is what do the Israeli leadership now, Netanyahu and others, what do they think of this? I'll bet this is very annoying to them, because this is a sign of a major change in attitude, if there's much to this and if this keeps growing. But in a way, I see it in the big picture is, how do wars end? They don't end generally by common sense, and let's have a pause for shooting and killing each other so we can pick up the bodies and we'll talk about peace, and then they go back to shooting again. So I don't think that's going to happen. But this is a sign of the real way wars end. And this one, it might even be, significant. Because I keep thinking back to Vietnam and the '60s. And if you add up the years that foreigners wanted to tell the Vietnamese, how to live and how to run their country, and for some reason they were always the underdog and they always survived. And the people in Afghanistan, in spite of what we might think of their culture and all that, they seem to survive too, and foreigners aren't welcome to tell them how to live.
Yeah.
So, but between the French and the Americans, it's probably over 20 years, and finally, total exhaustion is what it is. And financially it is. The people back home, the deaths occurred, the people who are being drafted, resistance toward the draft, and it finally was an explosion. And once a few brave souls started getting out on the street and demonstrating it, guess what? The politicians woke up. The politicians didn't lead us. They led us down astray for all those years. But this finally woke up the people, and they quit funding. And Johnson was so afraid.
Yeah.
What would it be like for me to be president when we lost our first war? He could have turned it around and said, we're leaving, and been a hero and looked a little smarter than that. But anyway, I think what this is saying, the soldiers are getting exhausted. The American people are even exhausted because they know we're involved, and the people in Israel can't be happy. The families of all the people, all the lives, but 10 times more Palestinians have been killed than Israelis, so we're way ahead of the game.
Yeah.
That kind of stupid talk. So this is, I think it's a terrible way to have to look for a positive sign, but I think this could be turned into something positive. The people are sick and tired of it, and when there was one story in there about where there was a group ordered to do something, they didn't show up. Just a few showed up, and the big point there is they didn't show up, but they weren't punished.
Yeah.
So that means that they have to be very, very cautious. And just like when the American people got sick and tired on the war against COVID, once it broke open, more and more people say, "Hey, that's what I believe."
Yeah.
So I think this is very good, that there's a resistance build, and I don't think all of a sudden more innocent people are going to die because of it. I think less innocent people are going to be killed in this war if more and more people just said, enough is enough, the killing should end.
Yeah, and you've talked a lot for many years about the psychological impact of when you're at war and you're killing civilians, which is what we've seen for the past year in Gaza especially. And so they may not understand it, but I think probably what's taking the psychological toll on them is they realize they're not fighting combatants. Yeah. They're blowing up people's houses, and I think that does something to destroy the mind.
And that's what got to the attention of the soldiers, where they would be instructed to go in there and wipe out a village or something like that. Oh, but there's people in there, they have no guns.
Yeah.
And that's beside the point. And sometimes, why are you destroying that hospital? Oh, because there might be some bad guys in there too. On and on. And I think the goodness that is buried in the hearts of everybody, if you can just elicit that and get that to come out, the people will give up on this, along with the bankruptcy. How can we afford it? Not only the emotions, but the living conditions of everybody. Just look at what's happened to the Palestinians in Gaza.
And I think they were sent in with a particular rationale. We have to free the hostages. That's number one, and we have to deal with the attacks on October 7th. We have to retaliate. And these are the two rationales that they were given. And now after a year, they see the hostages aren't being released. In fact, they're not even negotiating. In fact, Israel murdered the chief negotiator for the other side. So you can't even have a negotiation. I think that might have a lot to do, this kind of disconnect between political leadership and military capability. But I'm going to do a couple of quotes from the article. If you can Put the next one on, but skip it and go to one parent of a soldier. Go to the next one. One parent of a soldier in Nahal said that according to her son, quote, "The wards are empty. Everyone who is not dead or injured is mentally damaged. There are very few left who return to fight, and they're not quite right either." After Israel's ground invasion of Lebanon, in which many soldiers have already been killed and injured, her son told her, "I don't know what army they're thinking of entering Lebanon with, but I'm not going back to the battalion." That's a real problem if you're the Israeli leadership right now.
Can you see how Netanyahu and others should and may well respond to this?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why they haven't. The people who disobeyed the orders didn't get thrown in prison. Because the sentiment is growing, and if that happens, and I think that this whole thing could unravel. Maybe if we're lucky, or the world's lucky, it will unravel. But then again, if you look at it, how long did it take us to wake up in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
How long did it take us to wake up for Vietnam? How long did it take us? We're still in the Middle East fighting those wars that were started 20 years ago.
Yeah, so I think this is a partly good news story in a way. It's good that the soldiers who are, the ones being killed are getting concerned. My fear, and I think when I sent it over to you, I said, maybe bad news for us. My fear is that probably Netanyahu and his people that are a lot more extreme than him that are in power are looking at this phenomenon saying, okay, now we really need to get the Americans in here because our own guys are not going to fight. And that's my fear of what's happening. We see how now we have one THAAD that's there, that's 100. There are reports that a second THAAD is either being sent or is there. That's another 100. So you have 200 U.S. troops operating big guns against Iran or whoever else shoots at them. Hopefully that's not the conclusion he takes.
And I've always assumed that our responsibility should be more directed toward those people that we live with and we're part of, and that they are getting pretty darn worried about this. And I don't see how they can put up with this much longer, because this sentiment will spread. And I'm just hoping it'll do some good, but we've worked hard already trying to prepare the people for the registration and the return of the draft and all this. But the psychology of the people and the obedience, the political obedience in World War I and II was so strong that you didn't dare touch it. But I don't think that exists, and that should be used as a positive, because people are waking up. Well, why is my patriotism demanding that I go and join a war in Lebanon or Iran? I mean, some of them still are figuring out, where are these places? Are we going on a vacation to Iran?
Yeah. Now, someone on Twitter over the weekend mentioned, well, where are the articles of impeachment for Biden over this? And I commented, I said, well, actually, and I remember when this happened over Iran, where you and Dennis Kucinich would get together and file those privilege motions under the War Powers Resolution, the War Powers Act, which we don't like very much. But remember, there's that ability to do that and to force a vote on the floor. It seems to me that concerned members, that would be the way to go right now, to start forcing some votes. Why are our troops there in harm's way?
Yeah, but the publicity coming out of Washington has not emphasized that.
Yeah.
It's always, the hawks that get on TV or the major networks anyway. But the internet is not dead.
Yeah.
And there's a few people that know how to use it, and hopefully that can continue to influence the people in the right direction.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to close out and thank everyone for watching our Monday program. There are quite a few there. We appreciate that. Please hit that thumbs up. Put that last clip on. This will be my Monday reminder. I know all you guys out there holding that Bitcoin don't want to let it go. You're gripping it as tightly as you can. That's fine. But we'd love to have you share a little bit with us to keep the Ron Paul Institute and the Ron Paul Liberty Report up and running. To donate that Bitcoin, you scan that QR code using your wallet app, or you can copy, paste the Bitcoin address manually. We definitely appreciate it. We got a couple donations last week, and we hope to get some more. So thanks again for keeping us afloat and for keeping the truth out there, the real unvarnished anti-war message. Over to you, Dr.
Very,
Paul.
very good. And once again, I want to express my appreciation for all our viewers and supporters, because there's a lot of interest out there that I believe has been untapped, and that is the people who are concerned about peace over war and not assuming that the war can solve all these problems. And there's reason for us to continue the effort, because the other options aren't very good. So this is very important to me personally and to all those who do seek peace. But I want to mention an article that caught my attention, and I found it sort of silly. It went away. This came from Zero Hedge. It says FBI cyber agency issue of disinformation warning 2 weeks before election. So the FBI is sending out a warning that you could have disinformation near the campaign, and we live with it even before the demolishing of Seeking Truth and the denialists took over. So there's disinformation. I can't believe this. So here we have the FBI. How many people have lost confidence in the FBI? How many people, the one agency that we were the people were not as anxious to criticize as that was the protection of our presidents. It was the Secret Service, and yet here the Secret Service is questionable. I have to admit personally, I still have a few questions about what went on there. Something when the key individual, all of a sudden has taking the body and cremating it before the person who had the legal responsibility with dealing. That to me raises enough question. Anyway, this is information. But at least there's a lot of people now seeking the truth. But quite frankly, in the next week or two, the disinformation, I think most people are on guard. How many people are going to start that have gone along with everything Kamala has said, and which has encouraged some Republicans to go over, well, we hate Trump. Trump is going to destroy the world. They're not going to change their mind, in the same way on the other side. But anyway, this whole thing that the FBI is going to warn us about disinformation, and so all we have to do is call up the FBI, say, could you give us a couple hints? How should we interpret this? So I read this in the newspaper. Is this lie or truth? Well, it's true because we wrote it. But anyway, we'll continue the search for truth, because without that, we're very much lost. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.